So I'm a neighbor of the Stamps. I'm a resident of North Kingstown. I've been involved in a lot of these activities regarding wind turbines in our town. And I've learned far more about wind turbines and things that I actually care to ever talk about again. But when I first found out about this bill, which was yesterday, which is why I'm a little bit unprepared today to speak, I read through it and I realized it was pretty much the same bill that was introduced a few years ago that sort of went through hearings and didn't proceed. And the big issue with the bill back then was that it took away the town's rights, it took away the abutters' rights, and it takes away sort of the due process. So we were working with the state planning department. They were at the time opposed to that bill. I've notified them again about this. And the other thing I'll say is that we just went through a long process, the state did, with experts, with communities, with wind energy developers, to come up with some sort of statewide standards or recommendations for towns. Just for that reason, because every little town with a town council that turns over 2 years, they're not going to be qualified to really come up with good standards. So the idea was that the state would do that for them and make recommendations. And they've done that. It was a fairly long and painful process. And my issue with this bill is it doesn't meet even the minimum standards of that. And I'd like to see it come up to at least the minimum standards before it be given any real consideration. I'll just give you one example. My house, I think with the last projection, I was going to get 65 hours of shadow flicker a year on my house. And in this standard, I think it says 30 hours, but there's nothing about enforcement. There's nothing to say, how does the state, tell the wind turbine operator to stop it? That's just one example. There's a big section on sound, a good explanation, in fact, at that larger organization that put together the standards for the state, and that's not really represented in this bill either. So I think another pass needs to be taken on this bill to sort of tighten up the standards, tighten up the wording, and then maybe people can give it a real consideration. For the record, I am not opposed to the Stamps having a wind turbine on their property. I think the idea of an industrial wind turbine on that farm right beside a neighborhood is probably inappropriate, but I have no issue with something smaller. We have no issue with wind turbines in general. In fact, I'm a sailor, and I love seeing wind turbines out in Block Sound. I think it's wonderful. So I do want to see some effect on this bill where at least the towns have some say and the neighbors have some due process. And I think after those changes have been made, I think you'll find that there's a lot less resistance to the bill.
Okay, well, thank you. Any questions from the council? Not from the committee? Nope, hearing none.
Could I make a comment? Seeing as my name was mentioned, I'd like to make a comment.
We really don't get into debates like that.
Okay, but we went to talk about wind turbines, and now I have on one side of me a farm that's burnt down and not rebuilt, and everybody keeps asking me. I said I didn't do anything. And then the other side I may have a bar room. And these people that drive down my driveway are looking for that constantly. And we had one the other day that I said, this is terrible that he's talking about me with a wind turbine, and I have two things on both sides of me that people fought against it and then did this kind of a thing to the Stamps. I said, this is not right in this country. Stop it.
Mr. Stamp, I agree with you.
Goodbye.
We're going to conclude. We don't do that. You both had your opportunity to speak. I gave you an extra opportunity.
Thank you very much.
He was talking on the merit of the legislation that's in front of us. So with that, there's no more questions. I'm going to close the hearing on House Bill 6062. And we are going to just go back to House Bill 6072 from Rhode. And this is over other vehicles and size and weight of road limits.